Canelo Alvarez is not bigger than Terence Crawford. So the thought that Terence Crawford is a smaller fighter and that Canelo is much bigger than him has been the subject of debate ever since this whole idea of Canelo versus Crawford was introduced. Now, this is obviously due to the massive division gap in which the two fighters are known for fighting in. Crawford was known as the undisputed king of 147 before he made his 154-pound debut versus Madrimov. Meanwhile, Canelo has been conquering the 168-pound division for a while now and even capturing the 175-pound title in the process. Now, according to Terence Crawford, even if Canelo was bigger than him, which we now know isn't the case, he said, and I quote, "Canelo was always the smallest person in his division. When you've got Usyk fighting Fury, Tyson Fury was a massive fighter over Usyk. The bigger guy didn't win either fights." Now, we're not necessarily going to dive into that logic because we all know that being bigger doesn't always equal to being better. After all, Canelo Alvarez alone is a prime example of a smaller fighter always dominating bigger opponents. Well, at least for the most part. This myth of Canelo being physically bigger than Crawford finally got laid to rest when both men would face off for the first time a few days ago. It showed Canelo actually being the smaller guy between the two, with Crawford looking like a natural super middleweight fighter. In the morning after, when both men had another face-off, keen observers also pointed out that Canelo was wearing platform shoes, further dismissing this idea that Canelo has this massive size advantage against Crawford. Now, speaking of advantage, I personally believe that Canelo's biggest advantage is that he's been navigating and conquering this division for a while now, on top of having the experience of taking punches from almost 200-pound fighters come fight night. In comparison to Crawford, who for the most part has gotten used to taking shots from welterweight fighters since 2018, with last year's Madrimov fight being his first time facing someone much closer to his actual walk weight. Well, at least for the most part in recent years. Now, I'm not saying that Crawford has been weight bullying all throughout his career, although that argument can also be made if we were only to focus on the numbers in the scale during fight night, which honestly sadly applies to most modern fighters of today. Even Canelo is no exception to this rule. Now, this is why I still think weight cutting and rehydrating immensely to get that 25-pound weight advantage come fight night is basically sanctioned cheating, but I digress. So with all of that being said, it's now clear that Canelo has no size advantage over Crawford. Weight and division experience, maybe. But in terms of actual physical size advantage, they're pretty much the same. Now, there's a lot of people that are saying that Crawford has the skills to beat Canelo. However, the question is, will he be able to exercise these skills once he starts getting hit by Canelo Alvarez? Now, both men have their respective advantages and disadvantages coming into this fight. To be honest with you folks, at first I thought that Crawford being almost 38 is going to be a huge disadvantage, but Canelo's overall mileage for the past 20 years that he's been professionally fighting could also be used to basically counter this particular argument. But what about you though? What do you think are the biggest advantages and disadvantages of both fighters coming into this fight? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, please don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for more quick talks.